Ms. Outake, do you believe that all groups, UP staff, teachers, and management should share budget cuts equally?
Yes, generally I do, and we have done that in the past. It depends on the current, for me it depends on the current budget. If we're short-staffed in one area, you need to maybe look at that differently than you do an area that we're overstaffed. And as staffing takes up such a great amount of our budget, it's quite important to get it right, and it's never easy.
Thank you. Ms. Liu?
We should look at the overall budget. If we need to balance our budget and reduce the deficit, we should look at overall, like examine each item and see which one will be the appropriate, which one will be suitable, and but bottom line is how to serve our children, our students the best.
Thank you. Ms. Wallace?
During the budget process, we always take a look at where our salaries are, how much we're spending, and usually there's cuts that are done right across the board. Obviously, there's more teachers and more support workers than we have for our district leadership team. So when you cut one of those, that is a lot of cutting because we don't have that many at that level. But I believe it should come from all areas.
Thank you. Mr. Dennison?
Well, it certainly wasn't a proportional cut this past time. QP was hit rather hard. The budget, before we made a few final adjustments at the end, cut the counselors by 45% and the youth workers by 45%. We certainly didn't cut teachers by 45%. But we didn't have a lot of choice because of the cap size that we were aiming for classes.
Thank you. Ms. Wiggins, do you support candidates that reside outside of the Tri-City area, and if so, why?
I think it's important to be able to be closely connected to your community, to understand the issues and the values of your community. I think it's really hard to be connected, understand the issues, and be able to serve your students, teachers, and families well when you don't live in the Tri-Cities. So that I would support candidates and trustees who are living in Coquitlam, Port Moody, Port Coquitlam, and Anmar Valcara.
Thank you. Ms. Cahoon?
I support being in the city that you work in. The reason being is when something might be happening in the district and you need to be there, you better be there. And also, times change. You need to be in the moment of what's going on. The environment's changing constantly. Things can happen in a split second. And if you're not there to be the person to take care of it because you're allocated to that responsibility, that would be quite a difficult job to fill. I just live by Como Lake, so I can basically hit anywhere in Coquitlam.
Thank you. Ms. Hobson?
Well, I personally disagree with someone living outside of the immediate Tri-Cities area, but it's not up to me, it's up to the electorate, and whatever the electorate decides is who shows up on the board on the 16th.
Thank you. Ms. Soto?
I think it depends on the individual, their experience, their commitment to the community, and their past history. And the fact that you live in the community doesn't mean that you're accessible all the time. Trustees also have jobs, and some of us travel, so you can't always be there at an hour's notice. I think it depends on someone can live in a community and not be connected to their community. So you really have to look at the individual, their history, and their experience.
Thank you. Mr. Ryan, new question for you.
I
Why?
always get the good question.
Do you want the old question?
No, it's fine. No, go ahead.
Okay. Why, or can you comment on why School District 43 failed to meet with retired staff to explain why their medical benefits were being slashed and explain what the future holds for them. So if you don't know why, you can comment on it.
You're talking about the cutting of the benefits?
Presumably, yes.
Yes, okay. I cannot explain, because I'm not currently on the board, how they would come to a decision that would cut funding or benefits or anything for the retired staff of the school district. Now, obviously, retired people, we recognize they're on fixed incomes, and to make a cut on somebody on a fixed income is not something that should be done at all, rather than to be done, without consulting them or allowing them to be even part of that process. So I think it's very important that they are still stakeholders in our community, and they've given as much as they can give, and we need to respect that, just like we're going to be respecting our veterans tomorrow.
Thank you. Ms. Alty?
Trustees do have to make difficult decisions. Staff meets with union representatives, union executives to discuss matters like these. The board made this decision. We didn't cut benefits to exclude staff and support workers. We changed the balance of who pays what. It was 50-50, and we changed it from 60% for members to 40% for the board to pay. Our projections are that it's going to be very costly to support the 50-50 split, so we made the difficult decision to go that way.
Thank you. Ms. Liu?
This goes back to the principles, like with the staff retired, anything, the benefit card or the school program, the student services card. I just feel the school trustee or school board should make, they are more open or more close to the people when any public policy or the internal policy being made.
Well, first of all, I wasn't aware that our district staff hadn't talked to the retired pension fund committee. But what I do know is that the benefits went up to $1.3 million last year. And when we changed the percentage of funding, it saved the district $1.6 million. So what it allowed was for $300,000 to go back into the district, to put back into the classroom and save some jobs. Difficult decision, I know that, but it was something that we looked at and to find some more funds.
Thank you. Mr. Dennison, do you support the Gifted and Talented program, and why or why not?
Yes, I do support the gifted program. I think we have to make it efficient. I know there are situations where we're busing some of the students so that they can join together in specific schools. I think Banting actually is one of those, if I'm correct. But it comes back to something that I said earlier, that leadership and the development of leadership is essential to our economy. So I support it on that basis. Also, there are a lot of what they might call learning disabled gifted kids that need to be challenged, otherwise they fidget or can't pay attention, etc. We need to treat them differently. They learn differently.
Thank you. Ms. Wickens?
I do support the gifted program. I think that I honor all of the students in our district and the way that they learn. One of my favorite quotes actually is that if a child does not learn in the way that we teach, we must teach in the way a child can learn. And our gifted students need a different way of learning, and it is our obligation to ensure, or our responsibility to ensure that they have every program that will allow them to learn the way that they need to.
Thank you. Mr. Hoon?
I had two families actually ask me if the gifted program was being cut, and I was unaware if it is or isn't being cut. But my belief is that the talent and gifted program is a necessity in the system, whether it's a pull-out program or a specific program in the schools that children are going to. Because, like we were saying earlier, they need those challenges, and if there's those teachers that are available to teach the gifted program, then you should support them, so those children are taken care of.
Thank you, Ms. Watson.
Yes, I do support the gifted programs in the school district. I think there was a cut made to one of the programs, and I would hope that we would be able to reinstate that. I support programs of choice for other learners as well, so students with learning disabilities should have programs of choice. If they learn better in a designated classroom, then let's give them that opportunity. There are other exceptionalities that would learn better in an environment where they were grouped, and if the parents want courses like this and classes like this, I would support them.
Thank you, Ms. Snowden. Are your campaign promises within the jurisdiction of a school trustee? Are your campaign promises within the jurisdiction of a school trustee?
Yes, they are. And one of my promises is that I will work hard to get appropriate funding from the provincial government for our district and to have them relook at the funding formula. Can I guarantee they will do that? No, I can't. But I can guarantee that I'll work hard to have the government look at it and keep pressure on them to do that and engage the community to do so as well.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan.
My answer is very similar to that. You know, I started the evening telling you about how I was frustrated with not being able to go to school after Labor Day this year. And for me, I think I was looking for a way to finally reach the government. And so I look at the school board trustee as a position where you actually have a legitimate voice to the co-governance of our education system. And unfortunately, I think that's something that our government is also looking at getting rid of. And I want to make sure that that voice is heard and that we keep elected officials giving the voice of the people to the government so that they don't squash that like they're trying to squash others.
Thank you. Ms. Alty?
Yes, my promises are within the scope of what a trustee does, and there's much more to the position than what we can tell you about in a minute and a half, but it's not, for me, I say advocacy is my first priority as a trustee, but to me advocacy is not just advocating for funding, it's advocating for other student needs as well, but the general term advocacy necessitates asking for money, and that's what we have to do.
Thank you, Ms. Liu.
My promise is advocate for government funding, and the other one is generate revenue from our international education. Because I look at the total budget, it's 1% of total revenue that equals $2.75 million. If we can increase that revenue, that can keep all our current program and services remain, so the student won't get affected.
Thank you, Ms. Wallace. We're going to have the last three people, and then we're going to start winding up. So, question for you is, how will you engage other levels of government?
Well, I think we do a pretty good job of that right now. We liaison with all the cities and the villages on an ongoing basis. We have regular meetings which involves not only the liaison council and mayor, but we also meet at least a couple times a year with the full council as well as mayor. In addition to that, we meet with our MLAs and we meet with MPs when possible, but I feel we do a pretty good job of liaisoning with the government part. I sit on the Student Leadership Council, which meets once a month. I bring back their recommendations to the board. I also attend the district DPAC meetings, which again is the voice for parents that is brought back to the board as well.
Thank you. Mr. Dennison?
Yes, there is a joint committee, I'm not sure if that's the right term for it, with the city, right? And they get together frequently and discuss a number of things. There's also the safety committee that I contributed to over this past spring, and that included RCMP and ICBC and a few other lesser known groups. And that kind of community involvement is very worthwhile. I don't know if you call that a level of government.
Thank you. Ms. Wickens?
I will continue to engage with all levels of government. I have in my experience so far. But I think more important than my engagement with levels of government, it's bringing the community together to engage with levels of government, and it's finding ways to have our collective voice heard. Not my voice as a trustee, not my voice as one parent. It's our voices together engaging with our councillors, our MLAs, and our ministers. Otherwise, those voices are not going to be heard.
Thank you. At this point, we're going to give you all the opportunity for a 30-second closing. So, Ms. Wickens, we're going to start with you and go that way this time.
Firstly, I want to take this moment to thank our veterans and the men and women who have fought for us. Because of them, I can stand here today and fight for something that is important to me. My grandfather was a soldier, and I think he's proud today. I'm proud to be Canadian, and I am proud to live in a country that has a charter of rights and freedoms that protects us all, to stand up for what we believe in. It's a humbling experience to run for, thank you.
That 30 seconds goes very fast. Mr. Dennison.
Well, I'm going to pull this right out of the Vote Smart Guide, so you can go back and reread it again. I think it's a perfect one here. Education has evolved and become more complex. There are special streams for French and Mandarin immersion. In mainstream classrooms, inclusion of diverse needs has increased the demand for classroom support. Curriculum is changing, student evaluation is changing, skills needed by our graduates are completely different than they were a dozen years ago. Government funding has become almost non-negotiable. Our new trustees need to be strong.
Thank you. Ms. Wallace, it is 30 seconds isn't very long.
As we approach the next 4 years, it will be important to have experienced and knowledgeable trustees. I say this because the board, as you've heard tonight, just hired a new superintendent. We have openings for possibly 2 new assistant superintendents. We recently hired a new secretary-treasurer, and we will have at least 2 new trustees on the board. So I would be honored to serve another 4 years, and I have that experience to bring to the table for you. So please consider me Jerry Wallace.
Thank you. Ms. Liu?
So working mother and the concerned parents must stand up and say no to closing cafeteria that leaves thousands of kids without hot meals, and say no to stopping school bus delivery for the needy, and say no to the tired politics, this attitude, ask government for more money. We need to stand on our own feet. And say no to the candidate who put our kids in current big mess while giving themselves a big raise. And vote for me, Zhong Sun, for a better future for our kids.
Thank you. Ms. Olke?
I have worked hard in our school district for 21 years as your trustee and 10 years prior to that as a volunteer parent leader. I am very much involved in the community, and I would be honored to continue serving as your trustee. I am committed to working with the board to improve the public's perception of transparency at the board level. Please vote for me, Gail Outake, for trustee. Thank you for your past support, and thank you for this evening.
Thank you. Mr. Ryan?
Yeah, thank you all for coming out this evening. Do you go to a butcher for medical advice? Would you go to a doctor to get your taxes done? And would you go to an accountant to get your car fixed? The answer is no. You go to the professionals to do the job they're trained in. So you should come and look at taking an educator into the school board, because I can bring the voice of an educator, someone who's in the schools every day. The last time we had someone elected into the education system that did not have that background knowledge was in 2001, and she was your Minister of Education, Christy Clark.
Thank you. Ms. Sell?
I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight, and I would like to serve as trustee for the next 4 years. I am so proud of this school district, and I want to be part of making it the absolute best it can be, even during the difficult times. And that can happen by building partnerships and working with everyone that has input in the community into our school district. So on November 15th, please give me a chance for another term. I'll make sure that I serve you well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hobson.
My thanks to the BCA for hosting this evening. School District 43 is a $3 million business and needs to be run as a business. We need adequate financial oversight, long-term strategic planning, an organizational review, and we need full-time committed individuals on the board. I have the time, I have the commitment, I have the experience. Please vote Barb Hobson for school trustee on November 15th. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mahoon.
I want to thank you for this opportunity, and it's been a wonderful experience, and I appreciate all the questions. It really makes me think hard. Interesting process that this whole election is for me. I've never done it before, and I'm really proud of all of my hard work. I also want to thank the past incumbents for all their hard work over the years, no matter who's voted in. This is obviously a succession plan in motion in our district, I'm hoping. And I'm looking forward to being part of being the creator of new ideas and solutions with a great team. Thanks, and vote for Carol on November 15th.
Thank you. And before we close, the president of the Burquitlam Community Association, Mr. Don Violet, would like to say just a few words.
Good evening again. Thank you all for coming out. It's been very enlightening. I hope everybody here has been educated as to the opinions and what you plan on doing for the school. Thank you again to the volunteers, the RCMP Community Police Station, the Outake Community Police Station. We wouldn't be prepared for the SkyTrain if it's coming to our community. We owe them great thanks. Thanks for coming out. And we do need volunteers there, so please consider picking up application and taking a look. You might be surprised at what you can do for your community.